This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. If you've been anywhere near a television set or a radio these past few hours, you already know that John Lennon of the Beatles is dead. He was shot late this evening in front of his apartment building in New York.
Minus 45 seconds and counting.
That ship was a danger to our boys. That's why that ship was sunk. I know it was right to sink her. I will do the same again.
The 80s were years of change. The interest in politics of the 70s gave way to a new private sphere.
Put the sunglasses back on.
Family, career, fun, and self-resolve.
Vanessa?
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
Under the hand of Ronald Reagan, hordes of yuppies follow the dream, or mirage, of fast and strong enrichment. Fashion blooms, a new age of color dominates. Martial arts, exotic holidays, and fast foods are the only trends followed. In 1981, MTV switches on its first broadcasting, laying down the law in music business. In England explodes the synth pop and the new wave, while in the ghettos, rap and the hip-hop culture crawl in. A new era of modern language begins.
Hi, this is Max Headroom, live down under.
The 80s is also the first time that heavy metal finds itself in the limelight. Hundreds of glam metal bands hit the charts with catchy music, weepy ballads, and pretty powdered faces. Those bands are the so-called posers. But metal's not supposed to be pretty. A more solid, straight, and heavy wing of metal crawls from the underground and grows against the posers. It's thrash metal. There's more than a barrier between posers and thrashers.
I'd said a long time ago, glam stood for gay LA metal.
God, we hated those bands. We hated Quiet Riot and Poison and Warrant and Bon Jovi and Motley Crue. I mean, hated those bands.
We despised it. Everything at that time was very black and white.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get lipstick on you there. I come from a family where men are men and women are women, and there ain't no middle ground.
And, if you have to dress up like a chick on stage to get people to come and check you out, you gotta ask yourself, first off, you got unresolved issues, and second off, is your music even really that good?
4 bands rise above the rest. From New York, Anthrax.
We enjoyed playing fast. We wanted to go faster. That's simple. Let's go. What can we do?
From Huntington Park, California, Slayer.
You can only write and embellish upon things you know about, and I'm a big horror movie fan. Boing, and I gotta kill people.
From Los Angeles, Megadeth.
It was actually getting it on your guitar. Like it or not, be exposed to the United States and the rest of the world, for that matter, to this type of music.
There's only one thrash band around that I know of, and that's Metallica, which they're playing tonight at 7:30, and I suggest that everybody gets down here right now and see the best thrash!
And the leaders of the revolution, Metallica, with their first and groundbreaking record, Kill 'Em All. Released in 1983, Kill 'Em All is a timeless masterpiece that is acclaimed for combining high speed with a tribute to the band's early new wave of British heavy metal influences. Diamond Head, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Motorhead, and Venom. All English bands which combine heaviness and the technicality of Black Sabbath with the speed and aggression of punk. Kill 'Em All would serve as a template for many thrash metal bands that emerged in the wake of Metallica's success.
Their first record was as metal as you can get and with more attitude and this and that, and everybody's been influenced by it.
I bought Kill 'Em All by Metallica going through the import section in my vinyl record store, and I picked it up and I turned around, I go, these are the ugliest humans I've ever seen in my life. I have to buy this. Man, this is definitely not a glam metal band.
You know, we're all from the Bay Area, you know, watching Metallica as, you know, teenagers, and to, you know, massive influence on the band. You know, massive influence musically and even just like the kind of way that they, you know, carry themselves as a band, you know.
Unfettered by convention, fan expectations, or oppressive producers, Kill 'Em All is the fuse that ignited the birth of the thrash metal genre.
What Metallica did in 1983 was they delivered an album that went where others didn't go.
It was just so aggressive and so tough, and it's, you know, boys will be boys.
No American band ever sounded like that. And you had all these underground kids that all of a sudden when that record came out, it was like, this is our band. This is really our band.
We had a very, very pure vision back then. Just four guys who just loved to play metal.
We didn't think too much, we just did it.
We were just living in the moment.
We had the songs, we had the attitude, we had the fire.
But how is it that this record came to life and set the band on the path to world domination? Between the 1960s and 70s in Denmark, 1,000 miles away from the United States, Torben Ulrich was an acclaimed tennis pro and also a jazz player. His house in Copenhagen is a crossroad of musicians and visual artists such as the legendary saxophonist Dexter Gordon is also the godfather of Torben's son, Lars.
I spent 17 years right in there.
Who lives there now?
It's a fertility clinic. I'm not kidding you. It's a fertility clinic. Up there on the balcony was my dad's playroom where he sat and listened to Miles Davis and Coltrane records, and that's the shit right there. Copenhagen was sort of the hotbed of jazz music in Europe in the 60s. That's the Israeli embassy down there now. All the jazz musicians would come and hang out here, and a lot of the hippies, and you know, that was his kind of environment away from tennis. You know, when he was here chilling, that was kind of what he did, you know, and hung with all these crazy cats. I grew up in an incredible, rich household. There was music playing when I went to bed. Everything from Dexter Gordon to Miles to Hendrix to Janis to everything. It was still playing when I woke up at 7 in the morning to go to school. But it was such an incredible, rich upbringing, and you taught me everything about being open to all of life's possibilities and to be open to all different kinds of music. There wasn't anything typical about any of this. That's why, you know, when people like Hetfield and so on sit there and talk about, you know, their childhoods and all this type of stuff, it's just, you know, what went on in here just was like a whole different universe.
Lars Ulrich should follow in the footsteps of his father within the world of tennis. But all of his convictions are blown away in February 1973, when Torben Ulrich obtains 5 passes for 5 of his friends to a Deep Purple concert that is being held at the KB Hallen in Copenhagen. At the very last minute, one of the friends couldn't go, so the ticket is handed over to the 9-year-old Lars.
You know, I went to a Deep Purple concert in 1973 when I was 9 years old, and my dad took me, and Richie Blackmore was up on stage throwing his guitar around and playing it like with his foot or whatever he was doing, and it all seemed so right. For some reason, it was very loud, and there was a lot of people that were getting off on this kind of shared experience between the band and the audience, and there was something that just kind of sucked you in, and I've been kind of addicted to it ever since I was 9 years old.
The concert has a considerable impact on Ulrich, inspiring his entrance into the world of rock and later on heavy metal. As a result of his newfound interest in music, he receives his first drum kit from his grandmother at the age of 12.
That in there was my playroom. That window and that window, and 2 windows over, that's where I had my drums. That was the room where I had all my posters, and the room where I had, that was like where I had my stereo and all my records, and all like 700 posters of Deep Purple right in there.
In August of 1980, Lars moves to America with one objective: to become a professional tennis player. But soon he realizes that he prefers the drumsticks to the rackets.
I moved from Denmark to Southern California in August of 1980. I was 16 and sort of fooling myself into believing that I was going to follow in my father's footsteps, be a professional tennis player. But within 5 minutes of being in LA, it was all about the music in England. Diamond Head, Angel Witch, Tigers of Pantang, Venom, full-on metal bands.
At the same time, in the city of Downey, California, the young James Hetfield is making his first attempt at playing music. Hetfield's parents are strict adherents to Christian Science, and consequently, much of his young life revolves around this religion.
My parents were raising me as a Christian scientist, which basically you're not believing in doctors, and there's some great aspects to the religion, but for a child it was a little difficult to grasp. It didn't make me feel a part of this earth, really. It actually really alienated me, just, as silly as it sounds, but it really did.
His childhood is not easy, as his parents divorced when he's 13 years old.
One of the first major blows that I can remember as a kid, at 13 years old, my father leaving, and without saying goodbye, without anything. He left a note. And that was extremely difficult.
By the time I was really into music, my dad had already split. So Mom was definitely supportive, but also not so supportive in the, you've got to cut your hair to get a job. It's like, well, long hair is part of music, Mom. If I got short hair, I can't rock, There's no way. So there was a bit of static going on at home around that. Dad had split and we needed money, and I didn't really want to get a job. I'd kind of show up and say I did, and, oh, I tried, but they wanted me to cut my hair, and I'm not doing that. It was tough.
James takes refuge in music. Obsessed by Steven Tyler and Joe Perry of Aerosmith, he often hangs out with schoolmates Ron McGovney and Dave Mars.
Just close my eyes and imagine myself in my room as a teenager, listening to Toys in the Attic and Rocks, and playing the out of them till the grooves were worn out, listening to every Brad and Joe lick toward the very end. I could sing every one of those things. I would turn them up so loud to get every last note that the next song would scare the head of me. There was plenty of posters on my wall, and the one that really meant a lot to me was the one of Steven and Joe up there singing into the same mic. And my mom, she was an artist, and she projected my image onto the wall and painted me as Steven and as Joe, and in a silhouette, and painted it. It was so cool. It was in my room. And I just really couldn't decide which was cooler, so I decided to sing and play guitar in a band. So I just wanted to acknowledge how much I admire you as humans in this music business. It's really tough to stay human. and there's a lot of people that demand a lot of things from you. And all the hell that you guys have gone through and come through as stronger people are extremely inspirational to at least, especially myself, someone who has fallen. And I love you guys. Thank you.
Somehow, with other friends, he's able to form his first bands, Obsession and Shrinks. But fate has a hard blow. His mother, Cynthia, falls ill of cancer and passes away slowly. She remained loyal to her faith, rejecting any medical cure. This element will forever mark her son, James.
Doctors and hospitals are kind of like taboo, and with the help of God, you will get better.
My mom passed on when I was 16. It's like, what's going on? Everyone's just leaving me. But the music was a huge, huge savior in my life.
As Ron McGovney recalls, we had no idea his mom was real sick. He was gone for like 10 days and we had thought he went on vacation. When he told us that his mom had just died, we were stunned. And he's cleaning out his locker, telling us that he's got to move in with his brother in Brea. During his senior year at Brea High School, James hooks up with a couple guys, Hugh Tanner and the drummer Jim Mulligan, forming the band Phantom Lord.
Okay, anyway, senior year of high school is when I met Hetfield. And there was this cat named Troy Drake who lived by me. And he was kind of like the wandering minstrel of our high school. You know, he went to school, well, not much, but he was always there walking around with an acoustic guitar like, you know, Neil Young or something. He comes up to me with Hetfield one day at a break and he says, hey, he goes, Jim, this is my friend James. He plays guitar too. And I just looked at the guy and I went, God dang, he's skinny. Anyways, we got together and played over at my parents' apartment, right? Troy comes over with James, right? James is the first guy I ever played with who had a Marshall half stack and a Flying V. I come to find out the Flying V, he told me, wasn't real, that it was like I don't know, probably an Epiphone or something. James and I were seniors, and Hugh was a junior, and we used to get together at Hugh's parents' house because they had a really big living room, and it was great. And that's when we started calling ourselves Phantom Lord. We never had a bass player, ever. This was before Ron. Ron was supposed to work into the picture like in the summer after school, after we graduated, and that's why James was kind of getting Ron room to play with us after. So Phantom Lord was just the three of us, and we actually, I talked to Tanner once in a while. He had a reel-to-reel recording, I remember, of a couple of songs we used to mess around with, and he probably doesn't have them anymore. That'd be a shame. But you know, it's got had a few songs that we used to record on there. I don't know who wrote what, but in terms of some of the Kill 'Em All stuff, the riff for Hit the Lights was, I think, James came up with that. I brought in the first words that we were messing around with the song, but they were lousy, and they kind of got ditched. Or basically got rewritten later on, which didn't bother me. And but I know for a fact that when we were going to high school, Hugh Tanner said, me and James were playing yesterday and we wrote a couple songs, and I go, oh, that's cool, what are they called? He said, Motor Breath. I just thought it was great, and he said Motor Breath, and I swear I can remember Metal Militia was another name that they had tossed around, and this is this is while we're still in high school. And so Tanner had a hand in some of the early stuff. I mean, Dave Mustaine's right about, being influenced by this and being influenced by that. I'm not trying to, create any bad blood, but Tanner did have a hand in some of the early stuff. We just kept playing them over there and never did any gigs. The scene at that time in California, I don't know. Van Halen was huge. I didn't know anything about clubs because I hadn't played at them. Remember hearing ads on the radio for Jezebel's, which was a popular club in Anaheim, and for Gazzari's and the Whiskey on FM radio. And I specifically, I remember this a long time ago, hearing ads for like Van Halen and Quiet Riot.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your boys. We'll get wild.
Playing gigs and stuff, and so that was my introduction. Like, oh wow, this is where bands play. This is, wow, that must be kind of cool, So, I don't know. Radio was pretty open at that time. Not a lot of heavy metal going on the radio, though it was starting to get popular. California's kind of slow for picking up on stuff. The East Coast is better in the States, and any punk bands that were any good, like Black Flag or Fear or anything, or
Rise above, we're gonna rise above. Make it score what we say. Rise above, we're gonna rise above.
the attitude was great, but the music was horrible. Me and James and Ron, a couple friends, went and saw Motorhead play at a club in Reseda, California, called the Country Club, and I had to leave Motorhead's set midway because it was so freaking loud, dude. I got a headache. It wasn't from the alcohol, I only had a couple beers that night, it was no big deal. They were so freaked out that I couldn't stand being in a small place. 120 decibels is coming after me. I was like, oh my god. During high school, Hugh and James and I really didn't play together, the three of us, very much. Once in a while, we'd play at Hugh's parents' house. We never played at my parents' house. Oh my god. If I'd asked my old man, hey, can you play some Black Sabbath in the living room? I already knew the answer to that one, right? Oh yeah, that was one thing. I think we did more of that than we did playing because we were just trying to write out high school. Sometimes maybe not play, but just sit around and listen to albums and then go pimp some beer from somewhere. And there was this tree farm that was behind the complex where he lived with his folks. And we used to walk out and walk around this tree farm and just knock down about a 12-pack between the three of us, right? Which I guess back then was plenty. But it was really cool because it was really dimly lit. And it was, so nobody could see us, so we could, get away with being punks and, walking around all 16, 17 years old, drinking beers, acting like we're all cool and looking like morons. And we used to do that quite a bit. We used to walk around Bray Junior High. Phantom Lord became Leather Charm earlier in the year. James and Hugh wanted to change the name from Phantom Lord to Leather Charm. I hated the name Leather Charm. I still don't like it. I thought Phantom Lord sounded so much cooler. To me, that sounded like Iron Maiden. It just had that sort of sinister, scary kind of thing about it. Don't you get it? They meant it like Leather Charm, like stained glass. Or like Judas Priest, there's sort of a twist on the word. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. It doesn't matter if that's what you mean. People they're going to see Leather Charm and think it's something a girl wears around her neck or something. And so I didn't want that. I'm like, dude, we're playing songs called Motor Breath, and we want to call the band, Pink Bracelet. That ain't going to work. So mad at me, dude. They were so mad. I'll never forget this fight. I go, why do you guys want this Phantom Lord? I go, that is such a cool name. And they're like, we don't like it. We like Leather Charm. And I'm like, well, the term sounds like a girl name. And James got so pissed. He's like, fuck you. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That is when Tanner and James actually played with Lars, okay, in April of '81. They were so mad at me about hating Leather Charm. It was either one or the other told me after the fact. But anyways, Hugh had already known Lars, or had met him previously, and so they went and played with Lars, and about, I don't know, a week later, one of them said, I gotta confess something to you. And I said, what? He goes, we went and played with another drummer. And I said, I don't care, I'm better than he is. Yeah, I was real modest. And I go, who'd you play with? And he said, some guy named Lars. And I said, okay. I go, and so how'd it go? And they're like, he's terrible. And I said, okay. Well, this is 1981. Yeah, Tanner and James and Lars actually did play together at least once. Graduation night, 1981. Okay, James and I are both graduating in the same, ceremony, obviously. He was hanging out at his house. We had decided that the three of us were going to go out and party that night. With my class of '81, they were having a graduation party at a local bowling alley. Every one of my friends went. I said, I'm not going to that. I want to get out of this school. So me and Head got his, I think it was maybe a Chevelle. James came by, picked me up. In fact, I remember my mom took a picture of me. She made this, what do you call it, happy graduation cake. And I was like, okay, Mom. So she took a picture of me and she took a picture of James. One of those Instamatic ones, Polaroids. And she gave James his picture. And then we said, okay, thanks, Mom. Can we go now? And we went and grabbed Tanner. We bought a fifth of Southern Comfort and I think a 12-pack of Budweiser. And basically, and it was either Tanner or had some M80s or cherry bombs that they had stashed from the 4th of July. So we were driving through. There were certain parts in Brea that were kind of like the rich people neighborhoods, and so James would be driving, and either me or he would be like, I was scared to do it. I think Tanner was doing it. I'm scared to death of it, of those kind of fireworks, and so we're driving down the street, going, woo-hoo, just getting totally hammered, right? He was like throwing cherry bombs out. He's throwing shit out the window into people's backyards, like into their swimming pool or whatever it was. And he did that a couple of times that night. And we're just having a blast. We're talking about, we got to do another, whatever, metal militia. And that's a story I haven't told to too many people, but absolutely true.
When James moves back to Downey after graduation, he suggests that Ron McGovney play bass and he could teach him. Thus, Leather Charm is formed.
And down in California, which is about, I don't know, maybe 25 miles from Brea where I live. It's funny because I drove kind of a small car at that time. It was a 71 MG that my dad had bought. When you're playing in a band and you got a rehearsal place, right, you don't have to lug your stuff around. You can go set your drums up and you're good to go.
James and Ron are living in one of Ron's parents' houses until it is demolished. It was taken by the state for the new 105 freeway. They fix up the garage with insulation and drywall, turning it into a rehearsal studio.
Yeah, it was that Ron McGovney's dad liked a small tract of houses, like rental houses. He had one that was open, and he told James that we could rehearse it. I think it was like the third one down that was not being rented out by somebody. And Mom's dad didn't care because they were planning on building another freeway. Hugh decided, this is something I want to clarify. Ron claimed that he and James and I worked on the studio that we put together there. That was almost entirely me and James and Tanner. who took the one-car garage and cleaned it all up and everything, because Ron was in Hawaii. Ron came back. He said if it was all cleaned up, his dad would put carpet down and put a wall unit air conditioner in there, and which is what he did. It was a one-car garage, right? And when Ron said we were stuck in it, he's not lying. It was connected to the little TV room in the back, right? The garage. And to the right of the living room, you just want to, go in. I'm not kidding. I would step down, take one step, okay? If I took a second step, I kicked my bass drum. That's basically where my drums were from the wall to the door. Ron was stuck in the corner right by the wall unit air conditioner. We had a stereo facing the drums and the amps with some speakers, turntable, cassette player. We actually taken the garage door and sealed it shut. Took it down, made sure, I think we put drywall over it or this and that, but basically fused the door so it could not, I think you could open it again, but it'd take some work. And so, yeah, that place was tiny, dude. When we went in there, it's like you stand here and you play. If you think you're going to start rocking out, you're probably going to hit your head on something. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky because I was sitting down and I just had a bunch of junk around me so I could make a bunch of noise, right? I actually had some breathing room. I could move my arms. If James did that, he would have cut his hand open on one of my cymbals. And the same thing with Ron. If Ron done that, he would have smacked his hand against the air conditioner. We couldn't even extend their arms. I mean, it was kind of like you just got in your little, box, your 3 little mice, and you just played. There was barely room. I literally had to crawl like underneath. I forget. It was a good thing I was only like 140 pounds about that time, because I could squeeze in between 4 inches of depth, because I was so damn skinny. It's like that's how you could get out of the drums and get back in the house. It was really, really small. The carpet was red and black, silver, I believe, and that was actually James and I. The insulation up there. I still remember doing that, and I remember how much I never wanted to do that again because insulation, is itchy. We got that up there as quick as we could, and we're both like, God, scratching because, that stuff, man, just gets to you. That garage was a mess initially. It was just a bunch of junk and a bunch of just crap and everything else in there. We cleared all that stuff out, went and dumped it off somewhere, and then cleaned it out and basically got it situated for when Ron got back, I think right after 4th of July. And I remember getting the call from James, going, dude, get your gear, dude, we can play. And I'm like, what, the carpet's down? He's like, yeah. That was cool doing that. You know what I mean? Yeah, I remember going over there and seeing the carpet in the air conditioner and going, oh man, this is cool. Because man, we were sweating like crazy cleaning that place out. I definitely remember that. Sprayed the ceiling silver, the walls white, and the red carpet. And, the red carpet.
After graduation, Hugh Tanner quits. Thus remains James, Ron, and Jim. They place an ad for guitar player and find Troy James.
Tanner, I think, left because of the age difference thing, and Ron had already gotten out of school. So yeah, the 3 of us started rehearsing. This is July. This is where Troy James comes into the picture. He joined the band, I believe, in maybe late July, and stayed for about 2 months, and then he split. Have I seen or heard from him since? No. I have no idea where he is. He was just, when you're in bands, man, a lot of people come in and out. He wore Pittsburgh Pirates, reminding me of the guy in Suicidal Tendencies who always wore a Pittsburgh Pirates hat. He was really good. And I still don't remember exactly why he left. I think he lived kind of far from where we played. I think that had something to do with it. I think, where he was from, I don't know, but I think he lived probably maybe 20, 30 miles away, and he didn't want to commute. There was a reel-to-reel that Tanner had. I don't know if that had any actual Metallica songs on it. It had an original that he had written that the three of us were playing. I could not tell you the name of it, but I'm almost positive it was never turned into anything. It just was some song at the time. Leather Charm had one particular recording, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's probably the demo that James gave to Lars to learn the Leather Charm stuff.
Meanwhile, Lars Ulrich has totally committed to music. He loves the bands of a new wave of British heavy metal, in particular Diamond Head, and establishes a kind of friendship with singer Sean Harris. Lars brings a breath of fresh air to the West Coast with European music and becomes an avid tape trader.
But by the time you got a copy of that demo, it was like the 14th generation of it. You could barely make it out, but man, it was like it was that whole thing. It was like, hey, guess what? I got a demo you don't have.
He gets to know other rockers like him who won't identify themselves with the LA scene, but listen to anything coming from Great Britain. A few of them are Brian Lew, Ron Quintana, and most importantly, Brian Slagle.
Remember one night out in front of the Troubadour, we're standing there in our Iron Maiden t-shirts, and it was like, after a couple of, cold sort of Schlitz malt liquors, or it was like, you saw like Nicky and Tom, it was like, Motley Crue. I remember like Nikki Sixx started chasing after me, and the one thing I could do, because 5'6" of me, I could like run faster than he could in his 16-inch platform boots, so it wasn't a contest there.
This is from 1980 Armed and Ready tour.
There you go.
And
where was the show? Was it Country Club?
Country Club. And after the show, I was out in the back in the parking lot, and about 100 people standing around. I'm wringing my ears out, and I'm standing there with my sister, and I look down about 40 yards, and I see this little guy with long hair, and he's got a Saxon shirt on. Saxon?
In 1980, yeah.
And nobody knows who Saxon is except for me. And it's like, So I walked up to him, and I said, wow, you like Saxon? He goes, you know who Saxon is? I said, yeah, Frozen Rainbow, Wheels of Steel. So his eyes get about yay big. He goes, you know who they are? Who else? And so we started talking, and I said, yeah, I just got the first Angel Witch single, and he just turned red. He couldn't believe it. He's talking to some guy who knew who Angel Witch was, and has the first Angel Witch single, which I had just bought at Moby Disc about a week prior, because it just was heavy, and it was part of the new wave of British heavy metal. Sure. And then when he found out I knew who Bow Wow was, thanks to him, that was it.
Wow.
So that became the Beavis and Butthead of new wave of British heavy metal. So the very next day, he drove up to my house from Newport Beach in his mom's 1975 AMC Pacer, brown, the ugliest car ever.
All glass.
All glass, and he's driving up from Newport Beach, to Studio City, and it was about a 10-hour headbanging session. Lars and I used to, again, like the early days, we used to get our records through the mail, and we would get Sounds magazine, and in the middle there would be an ad for Bullet Records. You always look at the ad and say, okay,
something new pop up?
Yeah, that sounds heavy. That sounds heavy. Holocaust, Heavy Metal Mania is that's like the ultimate. So write a money order, a check, and send off for whatever. So in between running to Moby Disc, hoping they get something in, or to Zed Records in Long Beach, or to whatever with Lars and with Brian, who became part of the triad. This is how you got records. So ring, the phone rings, and it's Lars. Yeah, I just got the package in.
I've got heavy metal music in my blood.
That's great. Oh, awesome. He goes, but there's a problem. So what's the problem? He goes, well, your copy of Heavy Metal Mania got damaged. What do you mean my copy got damaged? Well, I left it on the stove, and my mom didn't know it was there, and she turned the stove on, so it's a little warped. So how come that's my copy that got warped? So that's typical Lars.
Right.
Drive all the way down to Newport Beach, listen to his copy, because this is perfect. And after 12 hours, drive home, and it's like the next morning, my mom takes can you fix it, puts it on the ironing board with a towel, and sitting there ironing my record and flatten it out so I could have a copy that would work. So that's how desperate we were for that kind of music.
Meanwhile, James isn't playing guitar in Leather Charm, as he prefers to be the singer frontman, so it's just Troy on guitar. the band starts working on 3 original songs. One becomes Hit the Lights. The other 2 songs are Handsome Ransom and Let's Go Rock and Roll. The combined riffs of these 2 songs will become the Metallica song No Remorse.
We did a demo that I had a copy of for about a year or 2, and then I'm like, this is lousy, and I threw it away. It had, 3 original songs. Hit the Lights was the first song on there. It was pretty much true to form to the way it sounded on the album, except there was no big beginning. Like you hear on Kill 'Em All with the fade in, the big, we didn't do that. We just started into just right into it, kind of like an old Priest song. Handsome Ransom, I could not tell you, man, for the life of me, how Let's Go Rock and Roll sounds. Parts of that wound up going into No Remorse. Handsome Ransom, I could not read. The only thing I remember about Handsome Ransom was that a part of the song became that part of In No Remorse. That War Without End. It used to go Handsome Ransom, and the song, that was like the chorus of the song.
War without end.
So that when I heard that later on, when Tanner played me Kill 'Em All, I'm going, hey, that's Handsome Ransom, we're just after it. Hey, wait a second, and it's like, hey, Hugh, how come your name's not on Motor Breath, dude? I remember that in high school. Remember Tomorrow? I'm in the minority. I like Bruce Dickinson, but I love early Maiden. I like Paul Di'Anno's kind of punkish kind of thing in the band. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, we did Remember Tomorrow and Wrathchild. I actually heard that on YouTube, and I saw them playing that, and I'm going, no way. Because, I remember doing that with Leather Charm, and I heard it, and their version's really good. That was such a fun song to play with drums, and Clyde Booker shreds. Yeah, we did the 3 Maiden tunes. We did Pictured Life from Scorpions, which I absolutely love.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next song we're going to do is called
We used to do a song called Slick Black Cadillac. Okay, which was an original Quiet Riot song. It does not sound at all like Leather Charm / Metallica / whatever. It's funny, that was a song that I don't know whose idea was that we wanted to play that. It's more of a straightforward kind of just rock and roll. that song, and might be missing something, but that was primarily what was our set list. We had the Three Maidens, we had 3 original songs, a Scorpions, a Quiet Riot. So we had almost like a set list. We were almost ready, like if we could play a club, we had enough songs to, you know, get that 40 minutes in before they threw us out, you know, and slam the door. That was pretty much the set list of Leather Charm, and I believe all the songs were on that tape. I'm almost positive they all were. In terms of anybody having any copies of it, I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. If anybody does, maybe James does. I can't imagine Lars holding on to a Leather Charm tape. Yeah, you know, for all the stuff about his personality, you know, being, you know, guarded, being quiet, that's a fact, dude. When I first met James, I think he didn't say more than 2 words to me. My friend Troy said, you know, dude, does he like speak English? Me and Tanner would be going, la, 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 la. James was fine. James was fine if he had a guitar in his hand and him and he were sitting in a room and they were listening to whoever they were listening to at that time.
Like a Stephen King novel, the summer of 1981 is the last excerpt of a carefree youth. Soon these guys will follow different paths and live different lives, but in that moment, whatever lies in their future was still far away. The only thing remaining after finishing the school year was the desire to have fun and jam, as only true friends can do.
One good memory I've got from playing with him over the about, you know, whatever, that 9 month, we had a lot of laughs, dude. Once you got to crack the shell, that guy's got a great sense of humor. You just got to get past, you know, get to the real. When you get to the real guy, James, some of the funniest, I still laugh at stuff now. But I'm not kidding, man. That stuff that we used to do at the house in Downey, it was a cool place, right? Because there was a pool table in the living room. Well, when you walked in, so that was nice to have, right? So you could shoot pool all the time. Me and James used to just, I don't know, we used to just crack each other up. He used to make me laugh because he was always imitating like Valley Girls and stuff like that. He's gonna kill me when he hears this. That, you know, the whole Valley Girl thing that was, you know, culturally popular, you know, like, oh my God, and totally.
Ow, dang me, how could you? For sure. Cody. Besides, it's totally gnarly birth control. I can't stand it. Okay, so he's awesome.
Valley Girl.
And all that other stuff. And he used to do, he'd say stuff on the phone, he'd be like, I'd say something to him like, hey, James, have you heard the new Kiss record? Oh my God, I've just got to hear it right now. And he'd start acting like that. I just laughed my ass off.
Hello.
Hello. Who invited you?
Oh, wow, you mean you have to be in that experience it?
On rehearsal nights, Ron McGovney reminded me, he told me this a long time ago, but I'd forgotten. He said, remember you wouldn't practice till like 7 o'clock? We all wanted to start at 6:30. And I said, no. And he goes, you wouldn't practice till 7 because you had to watch something on television. I said, I did? You would not practice until you watched The Muppet Show.
Hey, maybe we've gotten lucky at last.
Yeah, maybe tonight's show's been canceled.
Tonight's show has been canceled.
Have I died and gone to heaven?
I don't know. We just had a lot of fun. You know, again, things we would just, you know, crack each other up. We like making fun of, you know, we used to really laugh at arrogance and uptightness of people. We thought that was just funny. Why people were like that. You know, so, no, as a guy, he was a good dude. I thought he was a good dude. That was one of the things I actually missed from probably the most of anything out of playing with him is that we had a great time. Had a lot of laughs.
The lineup still isn't stable. Troy James quits the band, soon followed by Jim Mulligan, as he wants a more Rush-oriented sound.
Was more, I mean, I was definitely focused on wanting to make it in a band. There was no question about that. I didn't leave Leather Charm because I didn't want to be a musician. I didn't leave because I wanted to work 9 to 5. Hell, I'm almost 50. I don't want to work 9 to 5 now. I wanted to change music myself. I don't think I ever realized how focused he really was, because he's kind of an internal guy. He's one of these, you can talk to him, but he's not someone who's going to, become your best friend, if you buy him. You got to crack a shell. Once you crack a shell, then, he opens up a little and he chills, but he's got a hard exterior. So I don't think I realized how focused he really was on it. But again, I didn't leave Leather Charm myself because of lack of direction or focus. Quite the opposite. I left because I got tired of looking for guitar players. I'm like, I want to get in a band that's complete. I want to play clubs.
James returns to and decides to embrace playing the guitar. Because of this, the old friend Hugh Tanner changed the course of James Hetfield's life forever by introducing him to Lars.
And he was always like, I'm going to start a band. We're like, yeah, sure you are, Lars.
Well, I started advertising through the Recycler's classified ad newspaper in LA, where you could sell your car or find a lead singer for your band.
Every week that it would come out, looking under H, for heavy metal, or M for metal, it was always him and me, and maybe a few other people.
One day this guy named Hugh called up and said he was pretty into the metal stuff and he was going to come along for a jam, and he brought his friend James Hetfield along.
When James and Lars first jam, McGovney's words are, "James, this guy sucks, and he can't even keep a beat."
Lars had this drum kit. It was 10 different colors, one cymbal. He hit it, it kept falling over.
Finally, he sits down and he's just like, I'm going, you sure this guy played drums before?
I went to his house and whoa, man. There was a very interesting smell, a very Danish type of armpit smell.
James was incredibly shy and could hardly even make eye contact, but he seemed to at least have a passion for some of the same things that I was into.
Hooking up with Lars was awesome, and we bonded a lot in the music and in the drinking as well.
But Lars comes with great opportunity, the possibility to appear in a song on a metal compilation record of his friend Brian Slagle.
Lars called me up and said, hey, if I put together a band, can I be on your compilation album? I said, yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Lars had really had a spot on the record, but no band. So, in my kind of will and maybe greediness to get going in this thing, said, okay, we'll hook up.
At that time, James was working at a place called Stephen Label Corporation in Santa Fe Springs. He makes stickers like Danger, Explosives, and High Voltage, which he uses all over the rehearsal studio. Ron McGovney is working for his parents' truck repair shop while Lars is still in high school, but lives for his new band. Judy Schreiber, Ulrich's senior year English teacher at Back Bay High School, recalls a composition called Heavy Metal Rules the World. It is one of the best pieces of student writing she sees during the 1981-82 school year. So good that she files Ulrich's paper in an archive of superior student work to be used from time to time as inspiration for struggling students in need of good examples. She asked him how he knew so much about heavy metal, and he responded that he played in a band, and that is what he would do for life.
It's 7:49 in the morning, and you have ESP because we're going to play Diamond Head, and then we're going to play more Iron Maiden.
I live for you.
We love you, baby.
Me too.
Bye-bye.
Me and Lars I was doing a magazine and laying out names, and Lars actually had a bunch of names. He was going to name his band like Red Vet, Blitz crap or something. He had the worst, most generic, Americanized like car names, and the hot rod names, Trans Am names, and I had a list of names like Metal Death, Skull Orchard, and Metallica was in there. And he goes, oh, that's a cool name. What are you going to call your magazine? How about Metal Mania? That was one on my list, and so I ended up doing Metal Mania in '81. And a few months later, I heard about this band Metallica. So I thought that was pretty funny.
The New Heavy Metal Review, we were doing that and checking out bands, and then Brian said, hey, why don't we do a compilation album like Metal for Mothers?
Right.
So that was the impetus.
Metal for Mothers was the British, one of the first metal compilation albums that had Iron Maiden, Angel Witch, Samson, and that kind of inspired it. That was in 1980. Ethel the Frog, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Praying Mantis, I remember them all. But that was Neil K, come out of Neil K's Soundhouse. That really was, I think, the first metal compilation album.
Well, the deal was we couldn't afford to record the bands, so we went around to all the clubs, and whenever there's a rock or metal band, we'd go watch them, and then if we liked them, we would approach them. Hey, you got something that you've recorded, you're going to record, we'll put it out on a record. And like this band called Rat, they had just recorded 2 songs, and there's the reel-to-reel from Metal Massacre.
Tell the World, right?
Right there. Yeah. And so they had songs. Brian had some friends like put a band together called Demon Flight to be on the record. And then Brian liked this band called Serafungal, which I never liked. But, you know, we each kind of, and he liked Bitch, and Bitch was kind of, you know, okay, it had a female lead singer, fine, you know, and, she, you know, Betsy or whatever. So,
Be My Slave.
I like Malice, I like Rat. Avatar was my brother and sister's band. They were kind of put together for the record, too.
Right.
So a couple of bands, you know, got kind of put together and assembled for the actual record. And this was about fall of '81. And this is, and I haven't gone into the story about when I met Lars, but anyhow, Lars calls me up and says, hey, you guys are putting a record together, I want to be on it. And I said, well, you don't have a band.
Right.
He goes, well, I'm putting
him and James at the time.
Right, and I knew they were doing that, and he goes, well, we're putting one together, can I be on it? I said, it's fine with me, but call Brian and see if it's okay with him. He calls Brian, and Brian says, fine. So that's how Metallica ended up on Metal Massacre.
Although they have the chance to appear on a record compilation, the band still isn't a band because they lack a guitarist.
At the time when that happened, there wasn't really a Metallica lineup, but Lars had got to know the guy who ran Metal Blade, Brian Slagle, and he just said, look, if you can get a lineup together and go in the studio and do a song, I'll put it on this record.
They start auditioning musicians. One day, opening the front door, Ron sees this black dude with a Jamaican accent named Lloyd Grant. He answered to an ad, heavy metal guitarist wanted for music much heavier than the LA scene. Lloyd comes over twice and records his tracks with a 4-track teak machine that Lars has borrowed. The bass player at the time is a guy named Glenn. He isn't that good, so they kick him out and ask Ron to play bass. So the lineup at the end is James playing rhythm guitar riffs and singing, Lars on drums, Lloyd playing the leads, and Ron playing bass. They keep the ad for a guitarist running in the recycler, as Lloyd doesn't seem to be the right musician for them. After some time appears a certain Dave Mustaine.
There was an ad in there for lead guitarist wanted, and they had said they were looking for someone influenced by Iron Maiden and Motorhead.
I just got this phone call from this guy who basically just called up and started talking. I mean, after hello, I don't think I said anything for like the next 10 minutes. He was just going blah, 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 blah.
So I go to audition for this band, and I took my amps and everything, and I plugged in, and I'm warming up.
He had this shrieking lead sound that would cut through any soundproofing. Everything just was exploding out of everywhere of him.
I said, well, are we going to audition? And they said, no, you got the job.
Mustaine's past is tremendous. His father is a violent alcoholic and beats the family, raging over little Dave.
He was a violent drunk. I kind of feared him because of his drinking.
My dad could be very, very cruel to David at times. I know one time he disciplined him by grabbing his ear with a pair of pliers and dragging him down the driveway home.
His mother escapes from her husband and with much difficulty tries to reconstruct a new life.
We'd move, my dad would find us, we'd move again, he'd find us. I never saw a moving van during the day. We'd always move at night, and he would find my mom and we'd run.
Dave, between economic hard times and trying to adapt socially, leaves home at the age of 15. He already has a strong dependence on alcohol and makes ends meet dealing drugs.
I started to deal pot because there's not really any other way for a 15-year-old to make money besides peddling your ass, and I wasn't into that. And I was dealing drugs to someone who worked at a record store, and she would come and have sex with me during the day, and then she would drop off records and I'd give her pot. And she'd go back to work. That's how I got my first Iron Maiden record. That's how I got my first Motorhead record. Full-blown English evil music. Part of the whole style I even have right now is obviously indebted to her being a dope fiend, you know.
He has a distrustful and aggressive character with frequent mood swings. With music, he feels that he can keep his demons under control. This is how he became a great guitarist. Unfortunately, this skill opens the doors of rock excess, and any kind of drug becomes accessible. When Dave replies to the ad in the recycler for an audition with Metallica, he is technically faultless, but you cannot say the same of his life.
I started to see the way people would fawn for guitar players. You know, the girls were just crazy about these guys, and the guys would, you know, give them drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. I thought, you know, free pussy, free alcohol, free drugs, I'm in. Where do I sign up? Smoke pot, hash, opium, psychedelics and speed, black beauties, magic mushrooms, LSD. Heroin, cocaine, crack, freebase, morphine, Demerol, China White.
Mustaine plays two leads on Hit the Lights, but the band keeps the second lead played by Lloyd because they like it better. Lloyd Grant recalls Hit the Lights was composed by James and one of his friends. I remember the day I went over to Lars' house. He said, "Check out this song." And he played me Hit the Lights. We were both into that heavy kind of shit. He wanted me to play some guitar leads on it, but I couldn't make it over to Ron McGovney's house for the recording. So James and Lars brought the 4-track over to my apartment, and I did a solo on a little Montgomery Ward amp.
You know, quality wasn't that important to us. It was the content, you know, and actually, you know, getting to that point of doing a record. You know, we were just happy to get off of work and show up in Ron McGovney's garage and have a place to jam. I mean, that was enough.
The time is running short, with the release date for the album Metal Massacre being imminent. The band is rushed desperately, so they use what they have.
We worked on this song called Hit the Lights. He played bass and guitar, I played the drums, and he sang.
Hit the Lights is the very last song Brian Slagel receives for the record.
The production wasn't good, but the song had attitude. Kind of just dirty and in your face.
He arrives the same day the songs are being mastered. Lars and James bring him a tape cassette, probably done the night before. It had to be a reel-to-reel tape so they could master it at the Bijou Studios in Hollywood. Brian says he needs $50 to transfer the tape and asks Lars if he can borrow the money. Lars doesn't have any cash, and neither does Brian, because of the album investments. So in despair, Lars asks Slagel's assistant, John Cornerens, to loan him the money, promising he would pay him back.
Well, they couldn't afford to go in the studio, and every band had to provide a reel-to-reel because we were going to master this thing at Bijou Studios in Hollywood. And there's some studios still there. It's right behind the Jack in the Box at Sunset and Cahuenga. And so we, I put $1,200 together. Brian put $1,200 together. That was for the mastering and the pressing and everything. Brian was in charge of all the typesetting and the cover. He had a friend do this. The credits got butchered a little bit because Brian was in charge of the credits. Metallica's spelling got butchered. Right. Ron McGovney's name got butchered, but anyhow. The day of the actual mastering, it was like a weekday. It was 3 o'clock we had to be there. That was the mastering session, and we get there about 2:45. Metallica was the only band that we didn't have any elements for. Right. Because they were recording the song the day before. At that point, Brian and Lars have been talking about coming up and making sure that you either have it on a reel-to-reel or have the money to transfer it over, and it was $50 to transfer it over. And I just remember Brian and I standing out in front about 2:45, and Lars comes running around the corner all frantic and panicking, and it's like, okay, where is it? And he pulled out of his back pocket this cassette, hit the lights. And then Brian goes, okay, and Brian goes, where's the $50? And Lars goes, well, I thought you were paying. And Brian goes, no, you're supposed to pay. And Lars is like, I don't have $50, I thought you were paying me. They're like talking like this, and I'm over here. All of a sudden, Lars' head just kind of cranks over to me. And he goes, you got $50? And it's like, I don't know. I get my wallet out, and I had $52 in my wallet. And that's a lot of money for 1982.
Sure.
For some guys working in a supermarket. Here's your $50. Hand him the $50. He hands it to Brian. And it's like,
there it is, destiny.
Yeah, and that's how they got on Metal Massacre. This would be the very first Metallica record ever in the world, right here. This is the test pressing of Metal Massacre. Wow. So that's the very first record.
So is that just Hit the Lights, or is it the full?
Well, this is the full album, right? But this would be the very first record. Now, the first recording would be on the cassette that Lars provided us when we did the record.
And the 4-track Boz
Yeah,
text.
yeah. The first version is this one.
Right.
This is the one with,
with
Lloyd Grant. This is the one with the misspelling.
Right, right.
The second version
had Dave Mustaine on it.
Dave Mustaine, and then everything was spelled correctly. And the song they rewrote. I mean, they re-recorded it much better.
Right, much better quality.
Yeah, stuff. I just remember going back, sitting at my kitchen table in my parents' house. My sister's making us pancakes, and Brian and I are sitting there with all the songs, figuring out like the song order too, which was cool.
Right. Oh, cool.
And I always was looking out for Steeler. Well, actually, we had to put Steeler first because that was part of the deal with Ron Keel.
Yeah, right.
But I remember putting my brother's band at the end of the first song side, just so you remember it. And I remember putting Metallica at the very end because I knew it was heavy, and I knew it was going to go out with the band. I wanted to give Lars a position, but I couldn't get him, So, but being mixed here in the middle, I thought, fine, let Brian do that. So I remember we were organizing it at the kitchen table eating pancakes. So I'll always remember.
The record sold out immediately, all 10,000 copies, and because of this, Metal Blade's Brian Slagel releases a second pressing of Metal Massacre. This time the band re-records the song with all Dave's leads and Ron playing bass. 20 years later, the first CD version is released, however, only with Lloyd Grant's original solo.
It came out when I think we printed, it was printed in Burbank on Olive Street, right where the Nickelodeon is now.
Oh, okay.
Pressing point.
Yeah.
And we went to England with, I think we printed 4,500 copies. That's a lot. Or was it 2,400? I don't remember. It's $2,400 we had total. I put in 1,200. He put in 1,200. So we were like equal partners. But since it was Brian's baby, he was executive producer. I was supposed to be producer, but somehow I became assistant producer.
Jump in the fire.
Things start to get going. James, Lars, Dave, and Ron continue to get together after work. In all reality, it's only Ron that has a constant job. Lars works a graveyard shift at a 24-hour gas station. Dave plays guitar and James sings. The band records during these sessions many Diamond Head covers like Sucking My Love, The Prince, Helpless, Am I Evil, and an original piece, Jump in the Fire. The live performances also start up. March 14th, 1982 is Metallica's first live show at Radio City in Anaheim, California. However, the show doesn't exactly live up to their expectations.
basically called everybody we could to get in there.
There was a good 75 to 100 people.
It's pretty amazing for a first gig for anybody. That was the most people we had for probably the next 2 years. It slowly dwindled after that. Well, after the first note, it kind of, people started leaving, I think.
We go up and we open up with Hit the Lights.
I think the first song, Dave broke a string. We had not anticipated something like that.
Dave Mustaine took what seemed like forever and 5 minutes on top of that to change his guitar string. I was sitting up on stage trying to sort of duck behind the drums.
That's when it hit me. You have to be prepared for anything that's going to happen.
That was not exactly how I'd planned out my first live experience.
In this confusing moment, there's a point in which James says he doesn't think he's good enough for singing, and he only wants to play rhythm guitar. So they find a singer named Sammy DeJohn, who is in a local band called Ruthless. He rehearses for about 3 weeks but never plays a show. In the end, they tell Sammy it's not working, and James goes back to singing.
I was really thrown into the singing part. I wanted to be a singer really bad growing up. My poster was Steven Tyler and Joe Perry together in this one picture, and I wanted to be both of them. And thinking that playing guitar and singing, no band has made it like that. You gotta have a front man. So, and growing up in LA, I always wanted to be in a band, and everyone was looking for singers. So, well, okay, I'll put the guitar down and start singing. And I had to go back and forth with it, Okay, I'm gonna sing. It's gonna be awesome. I'm singing, at this action show and going, oh, I miss playing guitar, and we need another guitar, so I'll pick the guitar up again. And man, I feel this, the riff and this, and okay, we're looking for a singer now. And then we look for a singer, and it's like, dude, the guy's a poser, and oh my God, and I go back and forth, and I end up doing the rhythms because he's not as good, and that, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna attempt to do both.
On March 27, 1982, Metallica opens for the infamous Saxon at the Whiskey A Go-Go. The reality behind the story is that the band records on a 4-track teak a demo of 3 songs: Hit the Lights, Killing Time from the Irish band Sweet Savage, and Let It Loose from the British band Savage. Saxon is scheduled to play at the Whiskey in Hollywood, so the band goes over to the club with a demo. During this time, Ron McGovney is also a photographer and shoots with Motley Crue. Tommy Lee and Vince Neil are there at the Whiskey and ask, "Hey Ron, what's up?" Ron tells them that Saxon is doing a gig at the Whiskey and he's trying to get Metallica to open for them. They respond saying, "We were gonna open for them, but can't. We're becoming too famous to open." So they introduce Ron to the girl that controls the booking. Ron drops off the tape and she calls him the very next day, stating, "Saxon is scheduled to play 2 nights. We're gonna have Rat open for them the first night, and your band can open the second night." It is Metallica's 3rd show. In reality, Metallica played 2 shows that night for Saxon. In April of '82, the band records a new demo, later known as Power Metal. The demo was recorded in Ron's garage, and it has 4 songs. Hit the Lights, The Mechanics, Jump in the Fire, and Motor Breath. All original songs that are still a work in progress. You can hear these differences in the song Jump in the Fire, where James tends to hold the notes longer during the chorus.
Jump in the fire. Gotta be good. See you tonight. I know that you're fine. Gotta be safe.
He tries to be like the singer Sean Harris from Diamond Head, but soon he figures out that he doesn't sound like him, so he decides to sing gruffer.
Jump in the fire.
The demo is labeled Power Metal because along with the tape, business cards were made and sent to the club promoters. The business cards were made by Ron with the title Power Metal, and when Lars Ulrich sees this, he gets pissed off, protesting. What the hell is Power Metal? I can't believe you did such a stupid thing. We can't use these cards with the words Power Metal on it.
James, at first he wasn't that much of a front man. He wasn't very sure of himself, but through the years he's really gotten really good at that.
Soon after, Metallica recruits a new guitarist and does a one-time gig on April 23rd at the Concert Factory in Costa Mesa with Brad Parker, aka Damian C. Phillips. While James, Lars, and Ron are getting dressed to go on stage, they hear a guitar solo and see Brad on stage just blazing away on his guitar. Brad will be fired after the show while James is still not fully convinced about his singing role. Amongst the possible choices stand John Bush from Armored Saint, but he declines the offer. In this moment, James comes to grips that he will sing and play the guitar at the same time.
Los Angeles at the time was preoccupied with what we'd now call hair metal, with Motley Crue and Rat and Warrant.
Los Angeles is the city you think of when you think of heavy metal.
This very sort of soft, plasticky, sing-along kind of rubbish.
All this poser hairspray bands, they hated them. It's like, what is this?
And then in San Francisco you had all these thrash metal nutters who had developed a taste for much more aggressive music that was much faster, much heavier than anything you'd get in Los Angeles.
We weren't doing what they were doing. They were playing pretty much cheeky music because they wanted the girls, and all we wanted to do was rule the world.
If you came here to see spandex and big hair, this ain't your band, and that was kind of became our war cry, you know? That developed our style. We were up on stage, we wanted attention. We're gonna play louder, we're gonna play faster.
In the summer of 1982, Metallica records one of the most famous demo tapes of all time, No Life Till Leather. The demo tape is a real blast. Everyone on the West Coast wants their own copy. Thanks to the new trading community, the tape soon moves further, reaching the East Coast and Europe. In the very near future, Metallica will realize that their name became well known long before their own faces because of No Life Till Leather. Everything else aside, very few know the story behind this demo. Lars hooked up with a guy named Kenny Kane, who's a real snake in the grass. He owns a punk label called High Velocity, which is a division of Rockshire Records, an Orange County record company. Kenny says he would put up the money to have Metallica do an EP. So the band goes in the studio and records the songs Hit the Lights, The Mechanics, Motor Breath, Seek and Destroy, Metal Militia, Jump in the Fire, and Phantom Lord, which are done in an 8-track studio in Tustin called Chateau East. After hearing the tapes, Kenny realizes that Metallica isn't a punk band, and so he tells everyone he's not interested. The tapes are still created and eventually become the No Life Till Leather demo. Actually, this was a bit fortunate, as sometime later, Rockshire Records will be closed by the FBI. The owners, Shirley Davis and husband Rocky, were financing the record company by embezzling somewhere to the tune of $15 million from Hughes Aircraft while she was working there as an accountant. Master tapes were confiscated by the feds, and the artists under contract were left home. Despite everything that happens, the band still plays a lot of gigs in the clubs and private parties throughout spring and fall. The more they play, the better they get.
They were really drunk, doing those shows.
Some of the musicians in Slayer, I was talking to them the other day, and they told me that they used to go to these early Metallica shows to watch Dave Mustaine play his lead guitar. He used to be able to play these solos without actually looking at the instrument, which really impressed them.
San Francisco, they'd already gigged a few times and were very successful and really built a following up here, and they loved it here anyway.
Metallica was all about the brilliance of that crunchy fucking guitar before anyone else had it. They had it.
On November 29, 1982, the band records the show at the Waldorf in San Francisco, which will become the tape Live Metal Up Your Ass. The support band is Exodus, featuring Metallica's soon-to-be lead guitarist, Kirk Hammett. The band plays all original material that they have written up to that point, which include all the songs from No Life Till Leather, 2 new songs, Whiplash and No Remorse, and 2 Diamond Heads covers, Am I Evil and The Prince. This last, however, will not be recorded as the tape runs out. Unlike James and Lars, Ron McGovney never takes his role in the band seriously, considering it more like a hobby. Although he always does what the band asks him to do, and he's the only one to pay for the band expenses when playing a show. To be honest, James and Lars are not fully satisfied with Ron as a musician, but it's Dave that pours all of his despise over Ron, and not only that.
When I would go to rehearsal, I would leave the dogs there to watch the drugs. And one day I took one of the dogs with me, and she put her paws up on Ron McGovney's car and scratched the front panel.
The pit bull started jumping on my car, scratching it all up. And I hear James yelling at Dave saying, "Hey, get your frickin' dogs off of Ron's car."
And James kicked the dog. Now, everyone thinks I kicked James' dog, and it wasn't that way. James kicked my dog, and that's where we went, "Don't do this, oh, don't do this, or you're going to get fired."
And I hear James yelling at Dave, and all of a sudden Dave just came unglued. "Don't you say this kind of crap about my dogs." And they're nose to nose.
"Shut up or I'm going to hit you." And then the bass player goes, "You hit him, you're going to have to hit me first." And then James goes, "You hit him, you're going to have to hit me first." And I said, "You win, James." And I belted him in the mouth.
Knocked him across the room. He wasn't even expecting it.
And the bass player jumped me, and I flipped him.
He threw me against the wall like a big judo throw. And we just got him and said, "Get out of here, you're out of the band, you know? All right, F you, blah, blah, blah." And he goes in, packs up all his stuff, leaves, comes back the next day. "Can I be back in the band?" We go, "All right, okay, you're back in the band." Dave was pretty much a Jekyll and Hyde.
That started perpetuating the Dave's an asshole rumor, because as far as anybody knew, I was just a badass on guitar that liked to fight and drink.
Well, it just got worse. I wasn't home one time, and Dave was sitting there drinking, and my bass was on a guitar stand, and he decided to take a whole beer and just pour it right into the pickups on my bass. Just down the whole thing in there. I didn't know anything about it. Go plug it in. About blew me across the room, shot the hell out of me. I told Dave, "Look, you guys get the F out of my house. James, get out. You're going to have to leave. That's it. I can't take it anymore."
He just was not dangerous. If you're going to be in Metallica, you're 4 badasses, not, 3 men and a baby,
They came in the U-Haul, loaded up their stuff, and they were off to San Francisco.